recording. Yay! Hello, NAKITA. Welcome to our first conversations with designers for the fall 2021 semester. For any of you who listen to this later, I am Nikki Arnell. I'm a professor at Arkansas State, but enough about me. NAKITA Pope, you are a force of positive wonderfulness. I first met you at the leadership retreat for AIGA. It was national, right? National AIGA in Dallas in sometime before COVID.
How many years ago was that? 3 years? 4 years?
Somewhere.
3 years. Somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere after 1990 and before COVID. No. Anyway. But yes, so, and hopefully students have looked at some of your stuff. You are a brand strategist and the chief chick at Branding Chicks. Correct. So do you want to explain that a little bit? Like, what is your, when you own your own business, that's just one of the things you do. So go ahead and explain.
Yeah, absolutely. So Branding Chicks is my baby. She's about 10 years old. I will talk about her in those terms because to me, she is a child. She's my little girl. But Branding Chicks is my studio. It's a branding studio. I specialize in brand strategy and brand development, primarily for women-owned businesses and femme-focused brands. And it's just been a joy these last 10 years. I get to work with so many wonderful organizations and companies and people. Women are doing some amazing things in the world right now. And, you know, there are so many things being developed for women as well. And so I get a chance to play in so many different circles, and that makes me happy and it keeps me from being bored. We all know how that is. As creative folks, nobody wants to be bored. So
no, but you know, it's going to be another question for you later. Yeah.
It keeps me on my toes.
So speaking of that, in the time that you've been owning your business, I guess, how has the landscape changed? Like, are we becoming better people? Like, what? Women becoming strong? I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, one of the things that I've seen, and it's actually one of the reasons why I chose this niche, when I worked in advertising agencies and design agencies. I worked in-house. I did a bunch of different things. But when I decided to go out on my own, I had always had freelance clients, even when I had full-time jobs. And so when I tried to figure out what my brand was going to be when I started this agency, I talked to the people that I worked with often. And one, I realized that most of them were women, not by design at that point, but most of them were women. And when I asked them why they worked with me and why they kept working with me, it was kind of the things that were intangible that I wasn't necessarily trying to do. But I realized that women tended to respond to that. I'm a teacher at heart, so I'm a professor too. And I want people to understand their brands in a really powerful way. I want them to embody them and to know how to execute them on their own. Like, I don't believe in the smoke and mirrors kind of, you know, approach to branding. Like, everything happens behind the curtain and it's magic and you don't know how to do it, right? I would much rather work with clients that can be partners with me. And I think that's what people responded to. And so once I realized that the thing that people responded to wasn't the thing that I was like strategically doing, I realized that I needed to build my business around that because it would be authentically me. So, yeah.
And that is, by the way, coming to us, I have a quote from you. My goal has always been to get people to pay me to be me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good goal to have.
It's a good goal
to have. Start out with. You gotta.
And that's how you have fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I love my clients. You know, I call our meetings play dates. Like, literally when I see them in a meeting invite, it says play date. So
by the way,
I want it to be fun.
You are very good at the little, and definitely all of you who are listening, like the little details, like for example, on your understanding of brand, like your website, just reading through that. Did you write the copy? That's words, you guys, if you don't know it. Did you do the copywriting?
I did.
Nice. I mean,
did.
It's so good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I tried to just make sure it was my voice, but because I focus more on brand strategy than just design, for the last probably 10 or 12 years, I actually write a lot of copy, or I do a lot of framework for messaging and things like that for my clients. So I've had to get even better at it and really like work on it and understand it a bit better, for them as well as for myself. So I'm glad that's paying off. Yay.
Did you learn that in undergrad? Did you learn it on the job? Did you
just on the job? I mean, I work with a lot of copywriters because at the school where I teach, we have art directors, copywriters, designers, content creators, like the whole thing. And I teach lots of teams classes. So often I'm teaching a teams class with art directors and copywriters, or art directors, copywriters, and designers. So I have to be able to speak their language in order to give them feedback as well. So that sort of helped me sort of hone that muscle a little bit more.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
By the way, because I know that I have an ad design art direction class this semester. How would you explain the Venn diagram of art director and designer?
Ooh, I get that question a lot. So I would say that art directors and designers fundamentally have the same set of skills to some degree, right? Like a good designer has a strategy, a good designer has a concept, a good designer knows how to technically execute something in different styles and different voices to be able to attract an audience. An art director does the same thing, but an art director, two fundamental differences. One, the environment they do it in often, and that's changing a bit. There used to be a time where art directors only worked in advertising agencies and designers only worked in design firms and things like that.
I remember.
That's no longer the truth. People are kind of moving around a lot. But art directors tend to work on a team a bit more. Art directors are always paired with a copywriter. So that's one thing that changes about it. And in general, in terms of the things they're executing, everything is through the lens of advertising. So even if they're creating social, even if they're creating, graphics for a package or something like that, it's through the lens of advertising. So a lot of times the deliverables are a bit different. Yeah.
That was an amazing answer. Thank you. I'm always so glad that I'm like, yes, what I lectured. Good. My work was advertising before academia too. So, but that's, I never owned my own place though. That takes some guts. Oh my gosh. Like
it was, if I knew then what I knew now, I still would have done it. I'm glad that I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I'll say that. Like I wasn't one of those people that started a business with like a whole business plan and I got a business loan and I did all these things and I enlisted all these people. I literally just could not take my job anymore. And I was like, I've got to go and I've got to go now. And I don't really want to work for anyone else. So here we go. I've got 90 days to figure it out. That's pretty much what it looked like for me.
How now, but did you, I know that, believe me, I know that story. Do you think that it was important that you did your time in advertising, did your time with newspaper, whatever you did your time with, like, is it important?
I think so. I learned so much from all of the different experiences that I had, all the different environments that I worked in. And I think, although my plan from the very beginning wasn't always to have my own agency, I was always just curious about the inner workings of the business side of things. Like at my last job where I was creative director, I used to have lunch with the CFO all the time. Like she was a friend of mine, we were cool, but also I just be like, so now why do we do that? And how much does that cost? And why? I was genuinely just curious, but so much of that information I collected over the years helped me when it was time for me to figure out what that looked like for my own business. And I still had a lot of learning to do, but I at least had some foundation of what running a creative business looks like, so I think that helped a bit.
So do you think that like a good thing that you probably say this to your students or to our students here that like find a mentor or just soak up knowledge wherever you can?
Find multiple mentors at all times. I think I talk to my students a lot about the cycle of being a mentee and a mentor, and being in that cycle as much as you possibly can. Because even right now, if you guys feel like you don't necessarily know everything, you still know more than someone else. Like you can mentor someone else right now. And I find that being able to be both a mentee and a mentor at the same time, all the time, it just enriches my knowledge base. And it gives me so much joy to like constantly be able to learn, but also be able to transfer the things that I learned to other people. So it's important to have mentors. Like I have probably 3 right now. At any given time, I have at least 2. And they're for different reasons. Like sometimes those mentors are peers. Like sometimes they're people that, you know, I went to college with, I went to high school with, but they may know something different than I do. And they can teach me or they can coach me. One of my best friends from high school is a sales coach. And when I wanted to learn more about sales, I enlisted her help, you know. I think I have three mentees right now. I have 3 mentees right now. They kind of never go away. Like even if I have them for a finite period of time, like some of them I've gotten from the AIGA mentee program here in Atlanta. And my very first one, I was her mentor supposedly for 3 months, 5, 7, 6 years ago. And we still talk all the time.
See, that's obviously you made a huge difference in that person's life too. So, speaking of which, talk about a person to making a difference. Like you are, let's see, Smart Girls on Campus, Good Thinking Atlanta, like also AIGA, not only serving on the board for Atlanta, but also a member of National AIGA Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. And that was a big deal at National, just so you all know, that was a really big deal recently. Like, okay, you're involved in everything, A, to make the world a better place, and B, how? Do you ever just sit down?
I do as much as I possibly can. Because even though I'm a crazy person and I like all the things, I know that I need balance, and that's a commitment for me. And sometimes it does take like strategic work to be balanced as much as you possibly can. Like some of my friends laugh at me because I literally will plan fun in my calendar. Like I'm like, look, you want to go to happy hour in like 2 weeks on a Thursday? And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, I mean,
in 2 weeks.
I have a lot of crazy weeks and I haven't seen you, and that gives me something to look forward to. I don't understand what the problem is.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So I try to plan breaks and fun as much as I can, even just the little ones. Like if I look at my calendar and I see that I've got back-to-back meetings, I'll block out the rest of my afternoon, or I won't plan like 2 big things in a row if I can possibly help it, just so that I'm not getting to the place where I'm burning out, because I'm doing all these things because I enjoy them and they make me happy and I feel like I can help. So I'm doing them for the right reasons, and they do like feed me energy, which is great, but I also know that I can't constantly give and not like take a second to recharge my battery. So I try to do that as much as possible.
Yeah, it's definitely something in our field that burnout is a thing.
It is. It truly is. It's easy to do if you're not careful, you know. And one of the things that I had to learn was that sometimes, even though you can't take a big break, like I can't always take a week off for vacation as much as I would like to, but sometimes I can take 10 minutes in between meetings and meditate, right? So like trying to figure out how to get those little bits and pieces in, and being very clear for myself about what things give me energy and what things deplete my energy. Because sometimes it's not that you need to stop, it's just that you need to do something that's going to charge you back up again, you know?
Yes. How long did it take you to A, learn that, and B, depend on a calendar?
Oh, I've always been a planner. So like, I feel a little discombobulated if I'm not organized. So, and I know a lot of creatives are not really like that. Like I talk to my students all the time. I'm like, look, you got to figure out some system for yourself because someone else isn't always going to give it to you, number one. And if they give you one that doesn't work for you, then you're still going to be bogged down in the muck and mire, and you're still not going to get your work done. So you got to figure out something that works for you. So I try to throw out all these tools, like try this one, try that one, try this one. Yours may not look like mine. Try this one, you know.
Try something, please.
Yeah, because time management is a thing. And the more you take on, the more serious that has to be, because there's no way to get it all done if you don't have a system. There just isn't. But so mine has been refined, you know, a bit over the years, especially when I add more things. I'm like, okay, sometimes you outgrow things, and I'm like, okay, that's not going to work by itself anymore. I need these things as well, you know. So it's an ongoing process.
So just between you and me, like there's no one in the room. Did you ever miss a meeting with a client or?
Oh yeah. Like last month.
And how did that, but that's not your normal thing, is it?
No. And I did beat myself up about it. And I gave myself about 5 minutes to beat myself up about it. And then I moved on, because I could just keep beating myself up about it. Because I hate that. I hate not being reliable. I hate missing stuff. I hate being late. Like that is just something that really bugs me. But I know that I'm human, so I'm going to make mistakes. So I just have to give myself grace, you know? So all I could do was own it. Like, I'm so sorry. This was a complete user error. I, profusely apologize. I'd love to reschedule with you. You let me know when you're available. I will work around your schedule, and that's all you can do. And if, that wasn't going to be good enough for them, then I don't know what else to say.
Right. Was it a client who you already worked with before?
Yeah. I was already working with them, luckily. But yeah, sometimes things just slip through the cracks. And because I do have a system, I depend heavily on my calendar because I have so much going on. So if it's not in my calendar, or if it's not in my calendar in the right way, I'm totally going to miss it. Like, it doesn't exist. If it's not in the calendar, it's not a thing.
Yep.
Because I have to depend on it, right?
Yep.
So that's why I put one of my colleagues, she laughs at me because every time we're on the phone and we set another meeting, like before we get off the phone, she has a meeting invite. And she's like, man, you're efficient. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I won't be there. I won't know we had a meeting.
Yeah.
None of that will happen if I don't do it right now. Like, that's part of the process. So if that makes me look efficient to you, then yay. But also, I'm just trying to make sure I show up next week where I'm supposed to.
There you go. There you go. Let's see. Oh, by the way, we do have a question in the chat every once in a while. I can see it. It says, and this is really, really good because I know you probably teach this sort of thing. When applying for an internship, how do you prep your portfolio for the company who is going to hire you? We do teach that a little bit here, but what is your explanation?
I would say make sure that you do your due diligence, like do your research on the place that you're applying for. Sort of cultivate your work, curate it as best as you can for the kind of work that they do, so that it, you want them to have the experience, oh man, they would fit in very well right now. Like, that's really what the experience you want them to have for whatever reason they're hiring you for. You want them to look at your book, look at your bio, look at your resume, and already start imagining you in that position. And that's the best way to do it, is to make sure that you kind of, hone everything in and make sure that you're curating it for the kind of work they do. The other thing that I think people overlook sometimes, because, you guys spend so much time and effort on these big projects. And, sometimes you worked on them for months and months at a time, and you've looked at them for so long. And then when it's time to present them, sometimes things fall through the cracks because you think like, oh, well, I spent all this time on it, but you have to go through it with a fine tooth comb and make sure that you catch all the little typos and that you present it really well and that it's really clean and all the images are really crisp. And like, that may seem like it's not that important because the work is most important. But if you have a roadblock for people to actually see how good your work is, then they're going to dismiss it. Your average creative director goes through a portfolio in less than a minute. I'm not joking. Like, fast. And it's not because they don't give it the respect that it deserves. It's just that their eye is trained that way. Like they can go through work really quickly. I can go through work really quickly and see what they're good at, see what they're not good at, see if they're going to make the list or not. And if you got 100 books on your desk that you have to go through, you don't have time to spend 30 minutes on each book, you know? So you want to make sure that there's no roadblocks for them to get to your great ideas and your great execution. So just make sure that those details are as tight as they can be.
And everything that she just said, everyone in the room, I also want to remind, so spelling matters, does it? Does it
Yes,
matter?
it really does.
Wow,
Really
why? But we're artists. Spelling's not the boss of us.
Because designers, especially, out of every creative discipline, I would say that I am most familiar with, designers especially are the ones that have to have attention to detail. There is no other way around it. You are often the last stop. I don't care how many strategists were on the project. I don't care how many account managers are on the project. I don't care how many people are on the project. You are the last stop before it goes to production. So if you don't have attention to detail, then that means that you're not going to catch those last things that need to be caught. And that responsibility is often going to be on you. And if you don't believe me, talk to the person who had a typo for 30,000 of something that got printed.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was a fun day. Super fun.
and just for any of you guys who don't, because the printing world may not be a thing for you.
Yeah.
Even assuming if it wasn't a digital run, if it was an offset press, like, oh, you're like, oh, but it hasn't gone to print yet. It's on press. Yeah, it's on press. You know how expensive it is to make a new match print?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And your client, and that means that, go ahead, sorry.
No, you go.
I was gonna say that means that either your design agency or wherever you're working has to pick up the bill for that, or they're gonna pass that bill on to your client. Either way, people are not happy.
And by the way, I see someone in the chat says that's why Adobe has spell check. I want to beg you all, don't trust Adobe spell check.
Do that too,
programs,
but not only.
Yeah, InDesign sometimes doesn't catch stuff, and I'm like, whoa, wait.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you have to, I think the best thing to do, honestly, is to walk away from it for, a day or two if you can, and then try to come back at it with fresh eyes. Because that's the reason why people who've never seen your stuff before can pick out typos and widows and all that kind of stuff super fast, because they haven't been looking at it for 6 months, right? So their eye goes straight to it, I promise. So like either have someone else, if you're really not good at that, some people are really not good at proofreading, and you have to know what your strengths and your weaknesses are. If that's not you, get somebody else to read it for you. Get a coworker who is good at it and be like, can you proof this for me before it goes out? Whatever system you put into place, just make sure that you have another way to like double check your work, because it matters. And it feels like, I think for some people that becomes one of those barriers that keeps them from really seeing you in the role, or they just assume that you have no attention to detail because you didn't catch those things in your own work.
Right.
You don't want that.
Right. That's what it translates to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is just so silly. It's such an easy thing to check. Yeah.
Somebody put Grammarly in the chat. That is one of my favorite tools. I love Grammarly. It actually, because once you install it, it checks everything. Like it checks your social media. I will copy into it from a project just to make sure that everything's okay. It is a great tool, especially if that's not something that's your forte necessarily, because it isn't for everybody. Right. You just have to have, some way to get around it and make sure that you're still producing the way you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I know my students right now are like, oh my God, get off the spelling thing. Okay. So, how do you make connections? Because I'm sure that you've just how you grow your network, you grow your community. What is your thing?
Oh man, it's one of my favorite things. And I talk about it a lot with my students, but a lot of people hate it, and I totally get that. I have taken to not call it networking, because people usually freak out when I call it networking.
That's an old term. I had to kind of train myself not to do that anymore.
Yeah, because people freak out like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I don't want to shove my business card in somebody's face. What you said before is exactly how I refer to it, like building community, because that part is really important to me. Like, I want to be around other creatives. I want to be around people who are doing interesting things. I think the biggest thing for me has been to put myself out there. I never know when I'm going to meet someone new. I encourage other people to make connections for me as well. Like if you run across anyone that you think I might need to meet, feel free to shoot me an email introduction. And I sort of position myself as a resource as well, because if I meet two people, like I meet somebody one day and they're like, yeah, I really want to get into film. And then I know somebody who's in film, I'm going to make that connection for them. It's going to take me 5 minutes to write a really cool email like, hey, so-and-so, this is so-and-so. So-and-so, this is so-and-so. And I say a couple of sentences about them, like they're amazing. They're working on this and that and other thing. You guys should talk. Have fun, right? 5-minute email. I don't know where it goes, but I've made the connection. And sometimes it comes back around and, some of those people have ended up collaborating with each other or dating each other. I think even a couple of them ended up being roommates. You never know.
Right. But you did your work.
I did my work. You two people are cool and you should talk. That's all I know. Right. And on the flip side for myself, like, even though I think sometimes it makes sense to be strategic about building community, I also have made a rule for myself that if I don't genuinely vibe with someone, I'm not going to push that relationship, even if it looks great on paper, like, oh man, that's somebody you should know. Like, okay, that's cool. But if I meet them and they don't seem cool, then I'm not going to push it. Right. It's okay. That's probably a better connection for somebody else. I want people that I'm like excited to be connected to. And like, I want to pick up the phone and call them or shoot them an email. Like it's, it's fun and not like, I guess I should reach out to this person. You don't want that.
No. By the way, since you are a powerful brand. But it is true that like, you do a good job of like, this is NAKITA. I don't really know what's going on with your private life, and that's okay. Like, how important is it to keep it separate, to be an authentic business person of yourself?
Yeah. I think it's important to know where your boundaries are. I think it's different for everyone, right? For some people, they've built their entire brand about talking about every aspect of their lives. And I think that that's authentic and that works well for some people as well. It's just not how I choose to do it. But I will say that, all of the things that I do professionally are things that I'm really, really passionate about. So I feel like because of that, people still get to know who I am based on the things that I choose to get involved with, the things that I choose to do. Like, I work with diversity, equity, and inclusion because that's important to me. You know what I mean? I work with women because empowering women and young girls to be the best that they could possibly be is really important to me. So I feel like, all of the things I do are aligned with my core values. So even if they don't know if I'm dating someone or, or if I'm on vacation all the time, they know who I am as a person at my core, and to me, that's more important.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, now this kind of seems like, we're going back to something we were saying earlier, but
okay.
How important do you think LinkedIn is? All of you guys who are on the thing are like, what? How important do you think in 2021, how important is it to have a good LinkedIn profile?
I think it's really important. I know that, I have students too who are just totally resistant to it, but, I think part of it is knowing how to use it to your advantage. You don't have to use every single thing that's on it, it's so helpful. Like it is not just another social media platform. It is probably the most concentrated area of business people and people that you can find that are doing what you do. Like there's no other way that you could find that many people at one time who are doing what you do or doing what you want to do. And I find that because people are there for that, it's so much easier to reach out to them and to make connections and to just say, hey, I love what you're working on, or I see what you're doing over there and I think it's amazing. I use LinkedIn quite a bit. And
did you resist it too at first? Or did you?
I didn't resist it, but I didn't really use it. Like I had a profile and it was kind of there, but until I really forced myself to like use all the tools that were there or use most of the tools that were there, I didn't realize how robust it was. Because the truth is, I don't remember what the statistics are now, but I think out of all of the social media platforms, LinkedIn is number 2 in terms of amount of users. It's crazy.
Wow. You know
Yeah.
that eventually Facebook's going to buy it too then. You know that that's
Probably. But if you think about the sheer number of people, right? And like, if you're looking for designers all over the world, if you're looking for designers all over the country, or you're trying to find out where you would like to work, or what design firms or agencies there are that are doing really good work. Like, of course, there's the handful of ones that always, win awards and that everybody knows about, but there's so many more. And it's just like this fertile ground to be able to find out everything you want to know about the industry. And if you want to navigate in this industry and do well in it, it helps to know as much as you possibly can. And not just all the people, but know all the players, all the pieces that are involved in the industry. So it's a great way to learn. Like, you see somebody who's doing really cool work, you go look at their LinkedIn, you see what their background is. Like, oh man, they're a senior producer on blah, blah, blah. Like, how did they get there? Look at all the jobs they had before. Like, that shows where their path is. That shows you what skills they have. It shows you where they're working, where they're putting those skills to use. Like, it really is great, especially if you're about to, embark on looking for your first job and really trying to get knee deep in the industry. It's great.
And by the way, all of you listening, when you have professional practice with me, if you're a normal graphic design major, don't you worry. We'll get you on LinkedIn, Instagram. You'll have a social media presence once you develop your brand. Okay, yeah. But I see you are on Instagram. How often do you use social media for yourself?
I use it quite a bit. I mean, my personal platform, I use mostly Facebook for that, just because I'm old and I like it.
And me too. It's all right.
But I also use Instagram quite a bit. I'm not as active on Instagram as I am on Facebook. But I try my best to put things out there that are interesting to my audience, or to just let people know what I'm doing. I have Branding Chicks, but I also started another business last year. So, I've been doing.
You weren't doing enough.
It wasn't on purpose. It wasn't. It was one of those things where literally my network, right? This is one of my girlfriends, like, we both run our own businesses, and we just were having one of those check-in calls, like, how's it going with you? How's it been during COVID? Like, all this stuff. And we came up with this idea, and, we talked about it for a minute, and then we got off the phone, right? So the next day she texts me and she's like, I really think you should do that subscription box idea. And I was like, why do I need to be the one to do the subscription box idea? I don't have time for that. And she's like, well, and I was like, why don't you do it? And she's like, oh, I don't have time to do it either. And I was like, well, I'm not doing it unless you do it. And she's like, I guess
Wonder Twin powers activate.
Right. I guess we should schedule another call. So from that point on, we built the entire thing through COVID, like on Zoom. So it's a subscription box for Black women entrepreneurs. So it goes out quarterly, and we've been actively working on it and building our brand there. So we've been doing a lot of social media pushes with that, but it's something that's close to both our hearts.
I've seen it on Facebook, and right now I can't for the life of me think of what it's called.
It's a Bella Boss box.
Bella Boss box. That's right.
Yeah. Bella Boss box. So it's been super fun. It's given me an opportunity to do a lot more design work, because I've done, all the branding for it. And we're designing custom products to go in each box. So it's been allowing me to do some stuff that I don't always get to do with my clients. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of work, but it's been fun.
So by the way, and this also seems like I'm like, but
okay.
Now we're at something else that made me think of something else. Another quote you had from one of your interviews was, let's see here. I gotta find it. This was from by the way, the 2020 people to watch. Yeah, that's right. But you said, or the question was, if you were not a designer, what would you do or be? And your answer was law enforcement or forensic science, because I am fascinated by the process of solving crimes, and I think it would use my creative and strategic skills. So again, there's a lot of crossover. Like it's all about strategy, right? Like you're always just trying to figure out how to make that person or why that person did something. Like what is
Absolutely. I was just having this conversation with one of my best friends yesterday. I just threw out the comment. I was like, I'm kind of obsessed with serial killers. And she's like, I didn't know that, but I'm gonna need to hear more about
yeah. I can't just let that drop.
And I just went down the rabbit hole, but it was kind of the same reasons, right? Like, I don't condone the violence, but I do think it's so interesting. They are usually so meticulous and so efficient. Like the ones that, rise to some sort of like, fame or whatever, like it's because they've gotten away with it for so long and they can't do that on the, on the fly. Like when they really dissect everything, it's like all the strategic planning that they did. And then the flip side of that is like all the strategy and all the different techniques and science and all the things that came into play to be able to actually catch them. It's just a fascinating, like, yin and yang kind of thing. I was just watching the documentary about the Unabomber on Netflix. And when it came down to it, they caught him because of forensic linguistics. Because of his language in the manifestos that he wrote, that's how they caught him. Isn't that crazy?
That is just wow.
I'm just saying, it's very interesting. If you're a research junkie and a knowledge buff like I am, I just think it's so fascinating.
So how I'm trying to have a clever comeback. I got nothing except for that. Yeah. But I mean, so for example, a little bit about me, way back in undergrad, my minor was in psychology. All I learned about that Freud was a weirdo and kind of a drug addict. But the reason why I did it is because I wanted to go into advertising. I wanted to tell stories and I wanted to figure out how to make the audience do what I wanted them to do. So is that kind of like the audience thing? Like you want to know, is that part of it? Just the strategy, figuring?
Yeah, just how people think and how they make decisions and why they choose to do what they do. Even when it comes to branding, like we often think about demographics, right? Like how old are they, how much money they make, where do they live, are they married, do they have kids? Like that stuff matters, but psychographics are even more interesting to me. Like what are they concerned about? What keeps them up at night? Why do they make the decisions that they're making? Why do they buy the things that they buy when they buy them? You know what I mean? There's just so much to unpack there. And if you can be strategic about researching that and then being able to take that and use it to make something palatable or engaging to a specific group of people, then you're winning, because, it infiltrates everything that you do, the copy that you write, the colors that you choose, the type that you just choose to put into your designs, what social media platform you use, like all of those things. So it really infiltrates everything. And I like the idea of being able to dig deep there and then sort of watch it like spread in lots of different mediums. So it's fun.
And for those of you who are in the classroom, who are in my advertising class right now, she used the word psychographics. That's right. Some of you are like, what? I look in the lecture notes. They're there. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I
do have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but we just actually Chloe, I think that was Chloe. We're gonna open it up to questions actually in just a second. Let me ask one more and then I'm gonna
you're fine.
Recording and then I will let you all in. But thank you, Chloe. Thank you for wanting to be in right now. I'm glad to know that you guys have questions. Usually I'm like question time and it's silent. So we're only quick. You grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and then you did your undergraduate in you had to buy a winter coat, Vermont?
Virginia.
Oh, I got the wrong. No, it's up there. It's not as cold as Vermont. Okay.
No, it's not as cold, but I'm a Florida girl. Like I definitely had to buy a real coat. Like my first winter, I remember calling my parents and I'm like, yeah, this Florida winter coat is not gonna cut it. I need a Virginia winter coat and I need boots because I have to hike across campus to the art building. So
had you seen snow before?
Yeah, a little, just from traveling and things like that, but not on a prolonged basis. So it definitely was an adjustment, but I loved it. Like, I love being able to experience all the seasons. Like I probably would not move back to Florida because I don't like being one way all the time. Yeah. But yeah, it was a journey.
Very, very different.
Good one.
And with you said you did work for, and of course I didn't write it down, but there was a company in Portland. Was that just remote, or you didn't move to Portland for a year, did you?
I did not move to Portland. Actually, my agency partnered with another branding agency out there. So I did some work out there, and I have clients out there. Actually, my clients are all over. So that gives me another opportunity to travel, which I love. So it's fun. Yeah.
You've got, it's just so you know, it's on her website, but yeah, I saw these and now I can't find them all, but yes, you have them many places.
I got some in Phoenix and Chicago, and right now I'm working with someone in Canada. I've done some stuff with people in Australia, Texas, California. Yeah. In Minnesota, I just finished something with a client in Minnesota. So I got to go out to the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, where their artist retreat is for research.
By the way, I'm not from that far up north, but I'm up north enough to say, hey guys, do you want some pop? And they'll know what you mean, just so you know. Okay.
Exactly. I build in site visits wherever I can because that gives me a chance to travel. So I just build it into the proposal. I have to come out there because I can't really do my job without that, you know? So,
right. Actually, that brings me to one more question, then I'm going to open it up because I know that we got people, but
okay.
How did you learn about taxes?
Oh man. So
the hard way.
I will say this. I think that the most important thing I can tell anyone in terms of advice about running your own business of any kind is to know what you're good at and know what you're not good at. Okay. For me, there are two things unequivocally that I happily pay for. One is an accountant because I care about the money, but thinking about all the logistics and getting in the weeds on it for taxes, and like, I don't want any problems with the IRS. I don't. But I also, it makes my head hurt just to think about it. And I don't want to do it wrong. I happily pay my accountant. And I happily pay developers because writing code is the bane of my existence. I don't want to do that. So I happily pay those two people because I know that even though I could do it, is it worth my time to do it? And is it going to be right? And I'd rather just have it be done efficiently and be done right. Yeah. So I happily write checks to those people.
That makes sense. And again, all of you guys in the group, when you have professional practice, I'll give you warnings about taxes. As for writing code, talk to Professor Joe. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it is 40. I'm going to go ahead and you guys all stay on. I'm just going to stop recording, but you won't notice. Hang on one second.